finger. Okay, so a couple of things before we go to the lab. What's the first thing you're going to do when you get in the lab?
Goggles.
Right, okay, you're going to find those in the top drawer of every lab station. Okay, I thought about it over the weekend. I did not make up lab groups. I said, you know what, these guys are 15 years old. They can make their own groups and make sure everybody gets included and work effectively. So I'm going to let you do that. Okay, don't let me down. Don't make me regret that. Okay, but I think you guys can do that. So we are going to have groups of 4. Okay, they all need to be groups of 4 because then all the tables will have 4 people at them. Okay. Do the math right. Okay, so that's what I want you guys to do is groups of 4. You can figure that out in a minute, but here's a few other things to think about. When we go into the lab, okay, remember that these are the unknown compounds. Okay, one of the unknowns is ammonium nitrate, one of them is copper 2 sulfate, one of them is ethanol, okay, which is the active ingredient in hand sanitizer. Okay, one of them is paraffin, that's candle wax. Okay, one of them is sodium chloride, table salt. One of them is sodium hydroxide. One is hydrogen chloride. One is sucrose, that's just sugar. Okay, one is water. One is cobalt 2 chloride, and one is nickel 2 chloride. So think in your mind about what some of the properties of these things might be even before we get started. Okay, we know that certain metals make certain colors. Okay, if we see those colors, it can really help us do some identifying. Okay, like there's probably out of this group, probably 4 you'll get like that right off the bat. Okay, you'll know which one they are right off the bat. And then the rest you're going to have to work out kind of slowly. You're going to have to think of things like, oh, I have this one that's like really acidic, and all ionic compounds that have hydrogen acting as a metal are acids, so maybe that goes together, okay? Or things that have hydroxide are basic, and things to think about, right? The stuff we talked about in lesson 4, those are the things that are going to help you to identify the unknown compounds, okay? Now, in period 1, okay, my students were like overly thorough in making some of their observations, okay? When I say overly thorough, I mean like they were like wafting materials for like 30 seconds, and I'm like, guys, it doesn't have a smell. Like if it's not curling your nose hairs immediately, the smell is not going to help you identify it. Like realistically, probably only 2 of them have a smell that will help you, okay, at all right? And then for the solubility test, okay? You shouldn't be stirring that stuff for more than a minute, okay? If it hasn't noticeably done something in the way of dissolving after 1 minute, it's simply not soluble, okay? I had some groups that, like, weren't you stirring that the last time I came by? That was like 10 minutes ago. It's not gonna dissolve. It doesn't matter how long you stir it, okay? So give it a minute, that's it, okay? Because we got a little pressed for time and we really shouldn't have, okay? Stir it for a minute. If it hasn't changed color, changed size, shrunken, all those things that would indicate dissolving, it's non-soluble. Okay, you don't need to stir it for more than a minute. Okay, remember you also need to take the temperature while you are doing that solubility test. Okay, a number of groups neglected to do a good job of that and missed some vital data. Okay, so make sure the thermometer is in there when you're doing the solubility test. Okay. Now, you all have the procedure sheet. Gave that to you yesterday, okay? You need that. Everyone should have that out because you're going to take that across the hall with you. Okay? When we get across the hall and everybody has their goggles on and they're at their lab stations, there's a few things I'm going to have to tell you. One modification to the procedure you'll have to make, and I'm going to give you a few observations for one of the unknown compounds because we can't get it in its solid form, okay? So one of them is already dissolved in water for you, and I will tell you what its previous properties were so that you have those, okay? That'll be how things start. Okay, are there any questions from you guys before we go across?
Do we need a pencil?
Yeah, I would bring a pencil along. Okay, I had a few people who were having trouble accessing the Google Doc on their phone for various reasons over there. Okay, so if you can't get into the Google Doc on your phone to do your observations, write them on the back of the procedure sheet, okay, so that you have them. If you can't find it, just make sure someone in the group has one, right? And you'll be okay. There it is. All right. So, any other questions before we cross the hall to the lab? Okay, when we cross the hall, quiet as a mouse, so we don't disturb Mr. Rios' class. Okay, we're going straight across the hall into the chem lab, okay, and then I'll give you the rest of the instructions when you can see the stuff I'm talking about. Okay, listen up here, guys. So what's left for you to do is the analysis, conclusion, and evaluation. Okay, so you have already filled in, okay, this observations chart here. Okay, that was where we could put all of the data that we got today. Okay, the next thing is the analysis. So in the analysis, you have a chart that looks like this. All right, you just have the sample code. So for sample A, you tell me whether it was ionic or molecular. One test in particular tells you that. Okay, and then tell me what you think it was from that list of materials. If you think A was water or you think A was hydrogen chloride, you write that down. Okay, that's all there is to the analysis, nothing else. Jordan, you got your glasses on. Okay, so nothing else to do with the analysis, just to identify and tell me whether it's ionic or molecular. So analysis should go pretty quick. Okay, just talk, to your group, see what you guys can agree on. Right? Then after that, you've got the conclusion and the evaluation. So first for your conclusion, okay, copy and paste your hypothesis. All right, that's the first thing you do is copy and paste your hypothesis down there. Okay, and then after that, you tell me, here's the data. This is what the data says. Therefore, the hypothesis can be either accepted or rejected. You decide. Okay, were you able to identify all the compounds? Do they all have their own unique set of physical properties? Okay, talk about that if that's what you found. Okay, then tell me, does that agree with your hypothesis or not? That's what happens in conclusion. I'm looking for probably 3 or 4 sentences. It is, after all, out of 3 out of 4 marks. Okay, so give me a good explanation that includes your data and a bit of your analysis, why you decided things were ionic or molecular. All that can go in the conclusion, okay, and be an explanation. Then, sources of error. I need 2 sources of error and ways to fix them. Okay, so when you identify a source of error, and I'm going to kind of give you one here, okay, was it hard to use the small sample sizes?
Yes.
Would it have been easier if you had bigger samples?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, then that's the source of error. There wasn't anything you could do about that. You followed the instructions in the procedure. Okay, you can say, this made it difficult for these reasons, or here's how it may have interfered with our data, and here's how you could fix it in the future. That's how you identify and fix a source of error. Okay, you're not going to hurt my feelings, okay, by saying, gee, this could have been better, Mr. Coderre. The labs are designed for you to find things like that. Okay, you've got to find one more. Okay, and it can be anything. Okay, if you had one of the maybe measurement tools could have been better. Maybe it was missing something. You felt like if it had that, it would have worked better. Okay, all of that stuff, those can be sources of error. You just can't say, yeah, I contaminated sample B with sample A, and so our results were off. That you should have fixed right away. Okay, so that's how you identify and explain your sources of error. Now, last thing here. If you're not sure about your data, or maybe you didn't finish, okay, remember that in that assignment, there is the observations video. Okay, 4K of me doing the lab. All you see is my hands. Okay, you don't have to look at my ugly mug. Okay, you can just watch that video and confirm your data. Okay, if there's any one of them, like you're having trouble getting the identities figured out, it might be your observations. Watch the observations video and just confirm. Okay, everybody with me there? Okay, so there will be no more class time to work on this. The rest is on you. But this should not be a ton of work. Okay? If you've been working on this for more than an hour, stop and come see me because you're doing something wrong. Okay? All you have to do is fill in that chart, okay, and write a conclusion and 2 sources of error. That should not be more than an hour's work. In fact, it should be less, much less than an hour's work. Okay? Everybody follow me there? Because I often have parents like, Mr. Coderre, my son or daughter's been working on this thing for 3 hours. I'm like, what are they doing? Because that's way too much time. It doesn't take that long. Okay? So just go and do those things. Remember, it's not due till Tuesday. Okay? So you can come and bring it in. Say, Mr. Coderre, can you look it over? Okay? Come in and schedule help or any of my other help times, and I'm happy to do that. Don't email me and say, Mr. Coderre, will you look this over? I'm not looking it over unless you're standing next to me. Okay? That's the only way that happens. All right. Questions from you guys? Okay, other thing, remember that this is submitted through Google Classroom, so you do it all in that Google Doc and then hit turn in when you're done. Okay? Make sure it's turned in by 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday. That is when it is due. All right. Maybe you still have a few minutes to talk to your group mates and maybe figure out a few of those identities before the bell goes.